so do we have any public members here tonight?
No one has signed in and no one has emailed.
Great. Okay, well, let's move on to the announcement of the forum, and so we'll do the roll call. Just pulling out a pen here. Okay. Okay, oh great. All right, so I'll just go through the list here. So Commissioner Crump, Commissioner Girardeau, Commissioner Hickey,
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton, thank you. Commissioner Hecker,
Here.
Commissioner Holland,
Present.
Commissioner Kinney,
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill, Commissioner Peacock.
Oh,
Here.
sorry, I'm here in Lisa's place.
Oh, okay, great. Margot's
Margot's with me.
Oh, that's,
No,
no, sorry, that's a different O'Neill.
Different O'Neill.
Yeah.
Different O'Neill,
Yeah.
sorry.
So Margot,
Okay.
we'll add Margot with.
Okay,
She's on the top list.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's all right. Commissioner Peacock,
Here.
Commissioner Peeler here. Commissioner Sheed is on maternity leave. Commissioner Ryden,
Here.
Commissioner Siegel,
Here.
Commissioner Steinle,
Here.
and
Commissioner.
Commissioner Berkey.
Yes.
Okay, and then we also have a special guest. I'm sorry, a non-voting member, Commissioner Yocum. Here. Great. And then we also have a special guest, Reverend Hill, who is an incoming commissioner.
Good evening.
Great, welcome.
Potentially incoming.
Oh, potentially
It's not been
incoming.
confirmed by council yet.
Okay, soon to be confirmed.
Will be deemed approved. Council will not be acting on him before the end of the session, and so therefore he will soon be approved.
Okay, so the meeting officially started, we'll say, at 6:08. Essentially, it's extended now. Okay, so I'd like commissioners to review the agenda, and we need a motion to approve the agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. The meeting agenda is approved. Okay, approval of the minutes. So the minutes should be, a draft version was sent in advance, but we should have a copy here in our packet, is that correct? Yes. Second item here in the packet. So are there any changes or revisions to the minutes? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries with unanimous approval. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an update from the Office of Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. So,
Thanks, Heather. For the updates, we'll actually have different team members introduce themselves and provide updates on the various items on the agenda on the slide. Deborah?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Deborah Eichenbaum. I'm the Grants Management Specialist at the Office of Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. For a quick update, first of all, you also have a printout in your packets, just a quick one-pager, so that you can follow along on our update. For FY 2018, which incorporated school year 2017 and 2018, as well as summer 2018, we had 75 grantees in total. Some of those were duplicates between school year and summer. There was, it was 4.2 million was granted out. The youth funded to serve was 12,485, and actual youth served was 11,825, 95% of the goal. And one of the reasons for that is that 2 organizations closed during the year. For school year 2018-2019, we had 6.2 million, or we have 6.2 million that will be granted. We have a total number of 80 school year grantees. We have 17 small nonprofit, 39 continuation, and 24 new OST grantees. The youth funded to serve, we have as 13,252. Entered already into the database, we have 3,120, which we think is really good, considering it's really early in the year so far. Approximately half of the organizations have started to enter their data into the database. And of course, that number will continue to grow and grow. And for Summer Strong 2019, we have an estimated 4.8 million that will be granted. There were 3 requests for proposals that were issued in October. Those are currently with reviewers. And there were 2 applications. One is the DCPS DPR afternoon enrichment application. I see we have an extra enrichment on this form, but okay. And that actually is due in on the 14th, so tomorrow afternoon. And we have a vendor application for the coordinating entities for DCHA and DHS sites for the summer camps that will be done at the 4 DCHA sites and the 3 short-term family housing locations. And those are due in January. Announcements for summer 2019 will be made in February. Any questions?
I have a question.
Please.
For the first, the FY 2018 school year summer grants.
Yep.
You said that 2 organizations closed.
Mhm.
Means the organizations closed, or okay? Do we know what the reason why is, or what the context is behind that?
I know not completely.
Yeah. We're not sure the real details behind their closure.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't, it's hard to hear Mila. Can you say that again?
We have no details on the closure of the 2 organizations.
I guess
And
go ahead, Maggie.
I was just going to say, I think, without naming names or casting any aspersions, I do think it may be interesting to know a bit more about the context there as appropriate, because it could prove for some lessons learned moving forward, just knowing what I'm observing in the larger nonprofit space.
Okay.
I was going to suggest the same thing. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Deborah.
And then Kevin and Jeremy will provide an update on the next section.
All right. Hi, Kevin Cataldo, manager for the Institute for Youth Development. A couple of updates around the quality projects that we're working on. In FY 2018, we've actually provided 23 various activities or workshops, conferences and such, with 388 individuals trained, which is an unduplicated number. And we exceeded our goal, which we did try to shoot for 300. So that was exciting and a success for this fiscal year. With our Weikert Youth Program Quality Initiative, we currently have 30 sites that's fully participating in the full spectrum of the quality initiative for this year. Of those 30, 19 of those sites were from year one. So it'll be very nice to see that continuation of quality progress that they're making with their best practices this year. So we'll have some really good data, I think, coming out at the end of this next year for those folks in particular. We are asking all of our grantees, so we're hoping that most of them will, at least if they're not working within the quality initiative, to still at least work with the self-assessment tool this year, and then provide us their scores as well, but more internally and not reporting it through the actual WICA program itself. We did have all of our grantees participate in what we call the Basics Program Quality Assessment Project, which taught them how to do the self-assessment at the end of October. And we had 132 of the OST professionals attend one of the 3 days that we provided the training, with 100% of our grantees represented as well, which was a really good success. That's my section on quality. If there's any questions.
And I think we had mentioned before I have licensed the SAOY, which is a program youth assessment or youth program assessment. It's a short survey. We asked that the participants to fill out, the participants in grades 4 and above, and we've already started to collect baseline responses for this survey. We've asked about half the programs to collect baseline responses. These are programs which are slightly larger and have more kids in grades 4 and above. We've gotten about 250 responses so far. This survey will tie into some of the quality work that Kevin was talking about. It asks students about sort of their program experiences and their interactions with program staff, 2 areas that the WICA looks at as well. And in your packet, you can see that I showed you an example of a report that we will generate for all the programs. First, giving them kind of their baseline results and looking at changes over time at the end of the year, and we'll give them their scale averages. So scales are sort of groups of questions. We'll compare their averages to the averages for all the programs that we fund, and then we'll give them sort of the item or individual question level responses. So we're still kind of working on this report, but we hope that it'll look something like this. That's sort of it for my update.
Is there room to customize the SAOY, just to get feedback from youth about anything special about their program in particular that they want to share?
It's possible we could add questions to it. It has been used before, and it's kind of been tested and piloted already in Massachusetts, so I don't think we should go and make a lot of changes to individual questions or question scales, just because then we would sort of ourselves have to go and pilot and test it and things like that. But we could think about adding questions to it if the commission would like, certainly. Yeah, but we do want to keep it as short as possible, but we could think about adding a few, yeah, or is it 1 or 2?
Yeah, I would go beyond that.
Yeah.
Just a chance to, like, it could even be one that's just gives
Yeah.
young people a chance to speak specifically to something that's special about, their own program. So.
Yeah, we could think about that.
I have a question.
Yep.
So it says the survey is given to grantees whose participants are a good fit. So you just confirm
Sorry,
what
that
the
was,
fit is?
it's the survey is designed for students in grades 4 and above.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so some programs don't really have enough students in that age bracket to really get like a valid, get a reliable estimate. So we aren't going to ask them to administer the sale.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
And then Kevin.
Oh, sorry. And so, upcoming events. 2 of our First Friday events coming up. Actually, one's tomorrow, which is the Youth Mental Health First Aid. It's a full day training. Ironically, we're actually at full capacity of 40 professionals that registered to attend, with 25 professionals on a wait list right now. So it's definitely a workshop I think that we want to look at later to offer again, because there's a lot of high interest there, and that's exciting to see. And the next after that, January 4th, we'll be doing a mentoring workshop, which is also the National Month of Mentoring. And there'll be mentoring in OST, what does that mean to me? So we have an expert coming in from the Maryland MOST program that'll be presenting that workshop as well. We are going to, just to hold or save the date, we are looking to do a Learn 24 network convening event January 22nd, probably at the UBC Vaness campus in their ballroom. Just kind of working out a few details to confirm that. And we would like to have like a morning 10 to 12 for vendors to come in, different organizations that provide resources, supports, or services to the OST community, but also to allow OST professionals to have a time to really network amongst themselves, which we've heard loud and clear they like to do, and they would like to have more of those opportunities. And through our DME office, we'll also provide an Everyday Counts attendance workshop on February 22nd. So those are our most current updates in regards to events and activities. Any questions?
And then the last update for the OST office is that, as required in legislation, the Office of the DC Auditor is conducting their audit, and so they may reach out to commissioners to ask questions related to the OST office. And then one other update is I spent the last week at the Harvard Education Leadership Institute at a request by DCPS and their school members there, as well as OSSI. So we spent a week together thinking about OST in the context of community schools. So I just want to share that in terms of thinking about collaboration and coordination across DC agencies.
Can I just add on the auditor request that Mila is our point of contact for the audit, so most requests should copy her. If you're comfortable, if for some reason she's not copied, if you could just let her know so that we're tracking the outreach and stuff. We're obviously going to be very supportive and providing any materials they're requesting, but just also making sure that Mila is the point and has an awareness.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that update, everybody. So the next item of business is a presentation from Policy Studies Associate around voices of DC parents and youth on OST. So Christina Russell from Policy Study Associates. Hello. Hello, welcome. And so, yes, we're ready for your presentation.
Great. Thank you. Now you have both the full report and PowerPoint, I believe, in your packet of materials, but excited to be here tonight to share with you some of what we've learned from the portion of the needs assessment that focused on gathering the voices of DC parents and youth last spring and summer. So just really the central goal of this activity was to really explore the question about what DC families want in an OST system. And so we were looking at understanding what they saw as the most important program features, the skills and interests that they were looking to build on and explore in OST, the desired levels of participation, as well as to explore current barriers that they face. So I'll start with talking about what we learned from the parent voice, and here we focus really on parents who have children, the experience of their children in grades K through 8. So we quickly on the methods, we developed a short survey and administered this through a canvassing method in partnership with PAVE through the OST office. So parents going out and asking questions of parents themselves. Occurred from March to June 2018 at various community locations throughout the city, grocery stores, metro stations, community centers, a whole range of locations that PAVE organized according to their procedures. There was also a Spanish language option available with some of the PAVE volunteers or PAVE parents, not volunteers, able to administer in Spanish. In the end, we had just over 1,200 parents responding. They represented all 8 wards of DC, and we asked about what kinds of schools their children were in. About 43% were in DCPS and 54% public charter, so fairly representative of parents in the city. Thinking first what parents want to see in OST programs. We had asked them a list of what they thought was most important, and it was closed-ended to make it an easy survey to respond to. And so they identified really a whole range of features that were really important to them. We had asked about the quality of services, the staffing, the convenience, but really what came out, I was 78% said that one of the most important features to them was a safe environment, More than half, 53% were really looking just for activities that were appealing to and engaging to their child's interest. High quality and clean facilities also came out as some of the top responders. And parents could choose more than one response here, which is why the numbers don't add up. We also asked parents to identify the kinds of activities that they really wanted to see in OST, whether after school or summer. And this was a write-in response, and we then categorized their responses. And so there was a whole range, and the word cloud you see there kind of represents the range of responses that we got. But most frequently, the top categories that emerged were arts activities, so that included dance, music, band, as well as sports activities like basketball, football, cheerleading, a whole range of sports activities. So that was some of the top areas of interest for parents. We also explored transportation, knowing that that was one of the barriers that OST programs often face in recruiting and enrolling participants. In confirmation, lack of transportation is a barrier to participation for more than half of parents. And I think the theme that really emerged was the sort of interest in having supervised transportation, and that played out in a couple of different ways. So it's supervised in terms of the program providing transportation to the program or after the program, but also parents, other parents driving the children to and from. So somehow being supervised during that way to get to the program. Few parents wanted their children to walk to or from a program, not surprisingly. One interesting finding was that more than half of the middle school parents supported public transit as an option, so saying it was okay for their students to go to the program on public transit. Finally, we also looked into how parents access information and engage with OST programs, and I think schools really emerged as a focal point for ways to engage with OST. We know that lack of information about programs was a barrier to participation for many, so 37%, so that lack of information was important, or a barrier to them. And also that schools were the most preferred way for them to access information about 3/4, and they also like to register for OST programs in person. So thinking about the different ways to access through online methods, in-person methods, at schools, in person, very popular. So thinking about the youth voice, here we focused on the older youth, grades 6 through 12. Again, we developed a short survey, and the goal here was really to reach out to a range of young people, including those who are currently engaged in programs and those who weren't. So the OST office supported that administration a lot in terms of figuring out how to outreach to a range of youth across the city. So the outreach was done through the Learn 24 network, at various youth events, at libraries, showing up, administering both online and paper surveys to gather a range of opinions. The survey took place from May to July 2018, so really kind of during that transition period. So there was a response rate that was lower than the parents, 227 youth responded, but there were still representatives, so all 8 wards, students in every grade. We were seeking the 6 through 12, and they reported attending 71 different schools throughout DC, so really getting kind of that range of experiences. I think we achieved. Again, they were asked about their level of interest in a range of activities, if they were interested a lot, a little, not at all. The ones that really emerged as interest for youth in middle and high school were college exploration activities at the top, sports, career exploration and training, and other recreational activities. Mapping onto that, we also asked what kind of skills youth wanted to build when they weren't in school. This is a write-in response. They could list 3 skills they wanted to develop. And that reflects both what they were saying in terms of their activity interests, but also what the parents were saying in their survey. So looking at art skills, sports skills, and building skills that would help with career vocations. We also know that thinking about how much do youth want to participate in OST, especially with those middle and high school youth, can be an important question. And so we asked them, and I point out that we had a good proportion of young people who weren't current participants in out-of-school time. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we ask this. But there was a lot of interest in engaging in some ways in out-of-school time in DC. So more than 80% wanted to attend an after-school program or summer program. But it wasn't every day. So only 9% wanted to go to after-school 5 days a week. That number was a little bit higher with summer programs, with about a quarter willing to attend sort of every day. But for that 6 to 12 age group, less frequent participation, I think, is a way to really hook them into programming. So from that, we developed a couple of recommendations for the OST Office and Commission, really thinking about what it's going to take to promote participation in OST programs. So thinking about the outreach and awareness, continuing to build awareness, both by leveraging schools as a source of information for families, and I think the Learn24 website providing information both about what programs are out there, but what they're offering to be able to meet that need about meeting students' interests. A good way to build that awareness. And then thinking about, of course, the quality and engagement, promoting programs that will reflect those youth interests in some of those areas that really complement the school day, so sports, arts, career, and college, really safe environments, clean facilities, and then thinking about the opportunities for program transportation, and especially for older youth, ways to map on and be accessible to public transit, just for transfer locations. As an overview of our findings, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, it's Margie Siegel. I do have a question.
Yes, please go ahead, Margie.
I am curious about the after-school programs that fewer than 10% want to attend 5 days a week and half want to attend 1 to 2 days a week. So I have a couple questions. One is, did you look at 3 days a week, and do you have any sense of why or what they're going to do the other days of the week when they're not in an out-of-school time program?
So we did look at, to the first point, we did look at the different numbers of days per week, and in the full report we have the details broken out in the appendix, so you can see that that range of responses overall, but including by different groupings of youth. So I think there was kind of a variation in terms of how much they wanted to attend, and this reflects a lot of the research we've seen with other programs for youth who are in middle school and high school. Wanting to engage in different ways. We did not ask in this survey what they were doing on other days of the week or how they were spending their time.
Do you know if the high school kids' responses, they had a higher response rate in terms of wanting fewer days versus middle?
So that's a good question. For all of these questions for both the parent and youth survey, we did break it out across different age groups. We broke it out across wards, all different characteristics we could think of. And there was a remarkable level of consistency in the responses that we got. Yes, so the D7 has the page. And there was a good amount of consistency. The response rate wasn't high enough for us to do statistical significance testing, really. But if you look at those who are interested in attending after school and overall, it's in that same range. So for the 1 to 2 days a week, it's about just under 50% of students, whether they're in middle or high school, for after school programs, and then about a quarter for summer programs at that level. So there was consistency in the response. We didn't really see much difference.
Okay. And I just want to say that we just had our parent summit on September 29th, and we did an evaluation of the activities that we presented. And what was interesting for us is what is showing up in your study, transportation. That was a big concern for parents, safety, and the quality of the activities.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to hear, fun to see. So, yeah.
Are there other questions?
Yes. So the point about middle and high school students being interested in college exploration and career exploration. So 58% said they were very interested in college exploration, 55, very interested in career. Was there any analysis on what portion of those young people sort of overlapped?
We did not look at the overlap, so if they chose both of them, that was certainly something we could look at when they were able to identify a lot of interest in a couple of different activities, and a lot of you indicated more than one, but we didn't look at that the grouping.
Can you share a little bit about why you asked the question? I think it's an interesting question. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, well, when I first saw just the numbers, it almost looks just like a 50-50 split. Like, oh, okay, 50% of youth are interested in college exploration, other, career exploration. We know it's not that simple, and so I'm just curious as to whether there have been, one or two levels down analysis to kind of figure out, okay, well, what specifically, or were there trends deeper than this that would help us think about program offerings in a way that's a little more sophisticated? Is what I'm trying to get at. So that was what's driving the question.
Right. So if you look at the breakout of the data, just on that, in terms of digging deeper, that is an area where, just on the percentages, clearly the high school students are a little bit more likely to respond that they want to have the college exploration and the career. But I think it's interesting how many of the younger students, the middle school students, are interested in that career focus. So yeah, I think there's ways to dig into that data a little bit more, to think about the age groups, or to think about the sequencing.
Thank you.
This is Maggie, and it's okay. I just have one related observation and one quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
In general, related to that level of interest among middle school students around career exploration, it would probably be good for us at some point to start following both the Perkins and the JJCP reauthorization and reallocation process at the federal level, because it looks like both bills will enable some of those very same activities among middle school students, particularly the Perkins reauthorization. So I just wanted to note that. And then my question.
Maggie, hold on just a second. Can you, for those of us who are not as immersed in education policy as you are, can you just tell us a little bit about those two specific
what you just
policies
said.
or pieces of work? Yeah.
Sure. So candidly, Cheryl is probably the better expert on Perkins, but it's been used for a variety of activities related to internship, career and vo-tech education, historically. So that's what sort of the funding has supported. It looks like they're opening up some flexibility to states in the coming reauthorization, which I think will pass this month, that would allow using those funds for younger populations. So being able to use Perkins vo-tech dollars to do some creative after-school time programming related to college and career exploration would be an allowable use of those funds. Each state agency has a year from the passage of the bill to develop a state plan. So I'm sure there'll be tons of opportunities to have conversations with OSTE, but I just think given the increased flexibility, knowing we have limited local dollars and a sizable pool of middle school students, this could be something to think about as we increasingly move toward graded, blended, and coordinated funding. The Juvenile Justice, or JJDP, which I don't fully remember the acronym for, is far enough here, but it is also anticipated to pass for this year. It would similarly create some flexibility to allow some of that funding to go toward pretty broadly defined diversion activities. So things like mentoring, family support or tutoring, but definitely some activities that I think fall in the spectrum of what many of our providers are doing. Really, again, particularly if you tie it to our local programs run through DHS that do a lot of similar mentoring and after school and sort of broad-based non-academic supports to students who are struggling to attend school consistently. So it's just another federal funding stream that, given some expanded flexibility, we'd want to continue to monitor at the local level to have conversations with the stakeholders writing those state plans. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And then your question?
Very quickly, I was just curious if parents were given a definition of equality in their component of the survey, and or if not, sort of how they talked about quality, if at all.
So parents were not given a definition, but the question that they were asked to respond to broke out a whole lot of different dimensions that I have summarized as quality. So it asked them about elements of quality, including the quality activities, but also about the kinds of staff that worked in programs and their certifications. The copy of the survey is included in the report, so you can see what is there.
Cool, thank you.
I just wanted to name something that stuck out to me. I'm looking at the youth survey, and one of the things we responded to in the beginning was sort of how often they wanted to participate. And I would just reframe that potentially as an interest in flexibility. This idea of not being willing to commit to something 5 days a week doesn't mean they don't want it available to them 5 days a week. And I think that difference is pretty important, so I just wanted to name that.
I just want to add to that from conversations that I've had with youth and after-school programs. Part of the reason why they don't go on 5 days a week is 5 days a week in the classroom. So it doesn't mean that if they're doing outside activities, meaning there's a museum, field trips, that they wouldn't attend. But if they're going through the same routine activities 5 days a week, especially for high school kids, because that's something we may have to address in terms of how do we support or help to build capacity for programs that offer services to high school students, because we're losing them fast. And there's a great need for services for high school kids. But the activities that we're providing, when I say we, I don't mean OST Commission dollars, I mean in general in the city, are not attractive to the students, especially those who have the options to work. So we need to look at that seriously.
Well, and I think there's overlap. I mean, I run an after-school program that pays kids, so that changes that work part.
Right, so that may be
And I think
another
it
way
makes a
to look
difference.
at it.
And the other thing that comes up all the time for our kids is they assume if they get held after school or have to go meet with a teacher after school that they're going to lose their job with us. So that idea of wanting flexibility is this fear of not knowing how to navigate multiple responsibilities and feeling like, oh, if I'm committing to 4 days a week, I can't miss it. But sometimes I have to go to a teacher, or sometimes I need to go and watch my little brother, and they think that eliminates the other one. So it's something that we actually have to teach
Exactly.
actively.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there a breakdown of the 71 schools that were represented in the youth survey?
We have that data, but it is not in the report.
Okay.
Would it be possible for us to see it?
We will see what can be provided. We will work with PSA on that.
I have a question about how this data and information is going to be shared with the grantees in the network.
So it's officially public on PSA's website.
Okay.
Right before this meeting. So we will add it to our newsletter and share. But the PSA released it just before this meeting, which is why we did not provide it to you earlier.
Have
But
we
we can
ever-
send you a link to afterwards.
Have we ever thought about putting, average salaries based on the skill set that kids want, average salaries of those jobs that they might want in the survey, so that they know when I get older, this is how much I want to make and how they could possibly get to it? Because for me, and I guess this is a testament to me born in the technology generation, going back to what Bernard said, I think it's important that we get that number overlap with college and career exploration and see if those same kids are focusing on STEM, science, math, computer, and engineering, which is something that we really need in America. Maybe we can put that in the survey next time, so they can and possibly put a cost of living in the United States, database or something like that in the survey so they can compare to see, okay, this is what's going on in America. Am I willing to do this job, you know, based on my skill set that I'm learning? That way they're not blinded when they're going to college and they know actually what they want to do. You know, 'cause 7 million jobs can be available, but if they don't pay, you know, what it costs to live, then it's not really something they should be focusing on.
Well, I think that's a really interesting topic to explore in the future research. I did notice that when they, in the, what do you call it, ward breakout, Christina was saying, a lot of it is very consistent, but I did notice that there was pretty big inconsistency there, or one of the bigger inconsistencies was there, in terms of the differential between 1 through 6 was heavier on the college exploration, and 7 and 8 were heavier on the career. And so thinking about, like, exactly to that point, getting into a job right out of school, how that affects your earning potential versus making that shift into a college career. I mean, college is setting up for career too, right?
I also want to say too, looking at page 8 where they talk about the interest, having been around after school program for a very long time, and talking to kids for a long time about what they want to do, what are the things that they're interested in. It's really refreshing for me and really exciting to see that college exploration and career exploration, when you combine those two, such a high number, because it's usually sports, basketball, you know, football, and so to see this, I'm really excited that things are moving in the right direction.
I know I just came in, but I had a question. With the slide, it says that the after-school program is 47%, 1 out of 10, 1 to 2 days a week. I was just wondering, because I know with my organization, when I ask students, are they attending after-school programs, they'll say no, but then they'll associate like basketball and football not as an after-school program. So when they say 1 to 2 days or 2 to 3, it's because 2 days out the week they're playing a sport and they don't really consider that after school. So like, I'm just wondering when they're completing these surveys, is there a way to differentiate? Because I know students that I work with would say, hey, we want to attend every day except the days that we're doing sports, but they don't really consider sport an after-school activity. So just to make sure that we're getting the questions answered the right way in ways that they understand, my own input on how that could be addressed.
And we had talked about some of that during the development of the survey, and thinking about how is after school defined and what the school activities, other kinds of school activities, and I think it's more a flaw.
Based on the questions here, I think there's a lot of good candidates for the needs assessment committee. I just want to plug that for a second.
Awesome. Well, that's actually a really great segue. So unless there are any other questions about the study, thank you, Christina, for your work and for presenting the findings to us today.
I just want to say quickly how much just for what I looked at, I love the way you put this together. I think it's so easy for anybody to read it. You don't have to be an expert in the area to be able to read it and understand it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is the 2019 public meeting calendar. And everybody should have a document in their packet with the meeting dates.
It's at the very back.
We can move it. Okay. Week before or after? You tell us, we'll look at the availability.
The week before Burnett will be planning Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Mark. The week after, preferably. But I mean, it's fine. I'm just.
No, it's a good point. We can change it. It's early enough that we can see what rooms are available. This is why we provide it for comments.
So move it to the week after. Is that what the general consensus is?
Which week is being discussed?
I don't have a calendar
The
in
week
front of
of
me.
the-
February 13th.
The actual
That would be
calendar.
the 21st, would be the next
Yeah,
Thursday.
7 days later, yeah.
I wasn't even sure the month cut out. Thanks.
Oh, February, yes.
So we're looking at.
Could I suggest that instead of meeting in August and October, we meet in September and November? Because are we really going to have a serious meeting in August?
Well, I think we had one this year, since we met every month this year. I think that's a good question. I think the way the schedule was established would be that the commission would meet every other month so that the committees could meet during, on the off months. And so I think moving it might interrupt to some degree the subcommittee meetings, but I don't know if other folks have a perspective or a thought. Pros or cons?
We could play it by ear because we're now in December and we're talking about next August. So that's another way to look at it, unless we have to publish an annual calendar in advance.
I don't know about the requirements around the public calendar.
We have to post the meetings at least 2 days. I mean, we try to do it in advance, so we can leave it on there, and then if we need to cancel, so we do the notice 1 month out.
Okay.
But for room reservations, we do need to do it as early as possible to get the room. So that's why we try to.
So maybe we can hold these dates and then maybe at the April meeting revisit to see if folks have a sense for how the committee work is going and summer schedules and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
And this
Yes. This is Maggie. I would also just add, and Darby, you probably know better, or you and I could maybe look at this, just if moving forward, if this commission has any reporting responsibilities to council, if there's a need to get a little bit ahead of that by November, or if not. I would just say that may be one other thing to think about on that April point once we've gone through the next year of oversight.
It's a great point.
And for the committees, I just wanted to also say that the room is already booked for that second Thursday of every month. So if you can't find other space or don't want other space, it is available.
Any other comment or question about the meeting schedule? Okay, thank you. Okay, so then the next item of business is the standing committee reports. So I'll ask each commissioner to provide a report as needed. So I will give the report on the governance committee first. We did not meet since our last commission meeting. But here it says for 2019, the governance committee will discuss ideas on where the OST office may eventually be sited long-term. So that's an item of business that will be coming up for the governance committee in 2019. Commissioner Holland, can you provide an update on the needs assessment committee, please?
Sure. I'll start by giving some public praise to Jeremy and being helpful to help out with getting things rolling. But for me, we didn't meet yet. I wanted to make sure we got this today, like this assessment, and I think that there's another one coming. If I'm correct. So my intent is to once I have this information in hand, really kind of dig into it and see any potential gaps or opportunities, and then base recruitment off of those needs. Especially knowing that, from my understanding, there isn't funding in the budget to do surveys of this extent in 2019. So there's a little less urgency to get rolling right now. So I'd rather do it a little more methodically and start planning in 2019 for these respective surveys in 2020.
Thank
That's
you.
it for me.
Any questions for Commissioner Holland? Okay. Commissioner Kenny, can you provide an update on the quality committee, please?
We have not met. Can't really give a reason why, but I have had a lot of ideas about the quality and how we should define it when we start to look for what we should I guess, I don't know. I've been going through a lot, but as far as quality, there's a lot to, that's been going on that I'm sorry I'm not really here right now.
Okay.
But I'll get back to you with the quality and, I think the recruitment me and Kevin talked about. I'll get back to you and send you an email.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, so some of the ideas is that there is a meeting this month. Kevin, what's the date for the quality committee?
December 12th.
December 12th. That evening it's open for the public. It's posted in our newsletter. And then the idea also for the OST team to do a little bit of engagement around this in particular outside of the evening hours. And so that's what will be coming out of the commission or that committee to think about sort of this requires a little bit more public engagement and trying to figure out ways to make the quality sort of that public conversation on quality for that. So that will be something to be discussed at that committee level.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. So move on to the Strategic Priority Committee reports. Commissioner Crump, can you provide an update on the Funding and Capacity Building Committee?
Sure. Funding and Capacity Building Committee has not met yet as well. We plan to meet in early January. Plan to have 2 meetings on the second Tuesday and second Thursday of the month. And at that point, we will start working on funding and capacity building.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Commissioner Hecker, the Outcomes Committee.
Yeah, we're meeting on Monday.
Okay.
So Jeremy again has been very helpful. I will second what Commissioner Holland said. And Commissioner O'Neill, myself, Jeremy are going to be meeting on Monday to speak about how to move the work forward. Monday's the 10th, right? Yeah. Okay.
Questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Real quickly, this is Maggie. I have a staff person who's really happy to help with a lot of these committees. If folks are okay with just sending me any details for the meeting next week, or for your meeting in early January, Commissioner Crump, that would be great. She's just trying to get a feel for each committee to figure out how she can be helpful. So just wanted to toss that out there.
Thank you. I'm sure many of the commissioners will take you up on that offer. Okay, Commissioner Ryden, can you provide an update on the Coordination and Collaboration Committee?
Sure. So we met earlier in November on the 19th. We had a solid group that we are hoping to grow in the year to come. I think there's a summary that's going to be circulated more broadly, but I will say when we met, we were able to achieve consensus on a few of the focus areas for this committee in the coming year and some next steps. So the areas of focus really are around creating definitions for what good partnership and what good coordination and collaboration mean, both for community-based organizations and government agencies. I think the second pieces that we identified were really that there were opportunities to think about how we can grow both the process and execution challenges, or address the process and execution challenges related to partnerships between agencies and nonprofit providers, between nonprofit providers and one another, and how we can also increase consistent communication and institutional knowledge and ownership of the out-of-school time space beyond one single person. The final piece, I would say, we sort of noted that there's going to need to be ongoing coordination with some of the standing committees, given the scope of our work, really around the larger citywide vision, definitions of quality, and funding. So our hope is that once we have a more robust committee, one of our paths will be to deploy folks from our coordination and collaboration committee to help staff and support the other standing committees to ensure, again, coordination and collaboration. We are meeting again next week, December 13th at the Shaw Library from 10 to 11:30. Again, we are still soliciting folks who are interested, so please share with your networks.
Thank you. So just one observation, I think, is that many of the committees are still challenged a little bit in terms of recruiting members. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas or suggestions or wants to put out some of the challenges that they've been encountering for us to maybe brainstorm a little bit about, but I think committee recruitment was something we spent a couple of commission meetings talking about, how we make sure we have parents and students and community members involved in this work. So I don't know if there's any commissioner that wants to put out some ideas or use this as an opportunity to do some problem solving.
Well, you guys can steal my ideas, but no, I was thinking about, it would probably be pretty effective to engage the ward-based education councils. You know, I don't think they're in every single ward, but definitely 7, 8, 5, I think 4. I mean, so there's a few out there that include people who are interested in supporting education in the district, mostly adults, but if you start there, that may be a way to get community members to join on the committees. I'm trying to think about youth recruitment of like, my guess would be to go through providers themselves. We have a couple of providers at this table. You know, I'd love to hear their thoughts about how effective that could be for something like this, because, you know, frankly, some of this may sound a little boring to young people. So,
Yeah.
but
to include the arts or sports in,
right,
in your meetings.
right. But I would say that's a route. I mean, it's tough to get schools to distribute applications, but that's a try too. So all of those are things that I know I'm considering, but curious to hear what other folks have to say.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'm considering, I'm going to talk a little Deborah because she's so helpful, is because one, reaching out to the collaboratives, because they have a network of providers who might not necessarily be reading the newsletter. Sometimes I don't even read the newsletter, sorry. But then one thing that I'm doing that I'm really excited about that I'm going to work with Deborah on is I have some young people making flyers that I'm going to have Deborah and them approve, so that way one is more youth friendly, and then also flyers, because if I tell a provider or send the newsletter to the provider, that provider may not want to send another newsletter just to find one thing, where we can just have a simple flyer that says, like, well, one thing I was thinking about, but this is outside of it, but for us, what I was thinking for our committee was like Taco Tuesday Talks, like to introduce it, right? So I might make a flyer on Taco Tuesday Talks, and then have the information about the committee, but something that's very simple that you can see is capacity building and funding. If you're interested in it, come talk about it, and then we can go from there, as compared to just reading the newsletter and saying, hey, yeah, just look in the newsletter, because I've told 10 people that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in the committee, and if I ask Deborah, which I haven't, she's like, oh no, none of them have filled out the application, right? So just from that perspective, as compared to like being totally formal, I'm considering, well, leaning in the direction of flyers and other engagement efforts in recruitment, especially when it comes to parents and youth.
That's great.
I love that idea, and if there's anything honestly we can do to replicate that strategy, let us know. That's fabulous.
Okay, awesome. And Canva is a really good resource. All of our students use Canva. Canva is awesome flyer, so if you type in, like if I type in Taco Tuesday Talks, they can just edit it, right? And we can put the information in, copy and paste whatever's on our agenda. But yes.
Great. Thank you. Did somebody just join the call? That we heard a beep in. Oh, we may. Okay.
Someone's really upset about Taco Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Taco Tuesday on Thursday.
Yes.
I'm done with talking. It's taco.
Any other suggestions? What else have people tried?
I mean, I went to some of the networks that I'm part of and was totally unsuccessful. I think I thought I was starting with the low-hanging fruit, so I was a little shocked that I didn't get like any response from them. So and I'm making an assumption here, I checked this with Jeremy at one point, but I assume that if there are people applying to our committees, we would hear about that. Yeah, so I'm striking out big time so far. And I think to Commissioner Crump's point, I think trying some different ways, because the just sharing of information, it doesn't seem that people are grabbing on and getting really excited just at the idea of it. So I think we're gonna have to sell more than just spread the word.
And that's one of the things I was doing. So like, a lot of I have the same problem with my networks, right? But my networks always come to me about the problem. So like, when I was thinking about the Taco Tuesday thing, I'm like, let's talk about it, right? So let's talk about it. Everybody has these issues. What's wrong with funding and capacity building? Come talk about it. So I'm just trying to find like catchphrases and stuff to where we can bring it together, because sometimes it feels like this is so formal that really people don't want to come. Like, I can have a conversation about the same thing with people in my network and we're good, and as soon as I say come to 441, we're good.
Will we be able to do conference calls for most of these meetings? Because that may help, you know, especially for an hour or two. Because I was just thinking how we could involve the 21st century sub-branches that we have. We have 21 right now, and I'm sure there's some who have to be part of it. But to get them to physically show up in a space every time is going to be difficult. But a conference call would be, or what, webinar or whatever, that's easier for them. We should look at those opportunities.
I think that's a good suggestion. Is the committee meetings need to be open to the public?
Yeah, so they are open to the public. We do have conference call, but we've not been able to do like WebEx to make it. So, I mean, you were on the last call for the collaboration one, so it's just harder for the participants when they're not in the room to hear of the entire conversation. We will see if we can find a solution.
So we can't hold a meeting like in a Starbucks or something?
I didn't know, one thing I really like is I didn't know that we could have our meetings here. So I was thinking like that would be a really good strategy, like having people, so like my friend over there who's sitting at that table, he could sit at this table with us for the committee. So like we're all, the same thing that we're doing here together, really making everybody a part of the process. I think that might be a good idea for all of us to have at least one meeting here. Because if people are coming here and they're sitting down here, now you're at the table and you get to talk about it. I think that's a great strategy.
I also wanted to make just two quick observations. I think formal committee meetings do obviously have to be open to the public, but there can also be things like Taco Tuesday where it's an orientation and are you interested in learning more? And it gives a chance before folks have to walk through the metal detectors at one Judiciary to understand what this is about. And then to Commissioner Crump's point, feel really empowered and have a seat at the literal table when they do arrive. So I think there's wiggle room to think about those two things. The other I would say is, again, if folks have set meeting dates and information, I think Romina is sending out a newsletter. And again, I don't think this is perfect. Tomorrow or early Monday, we're happy to circulate dates among not just our members, but a lot of the other coalitions we work with. And similarly, we have another youth outreach team that's also happy to share flyers. So feel free to send that stuff my way, and I will make sure it gets to the hands of people who, depending on the format, can help do some of the outreach.
One other thing that I would say, think about, which is something I was thinking about, which is various reasons why we didn't host our meeting, but one thing to consider is the dates for students, like what they have going on. For instance, with providers right now, like especially if they have an OST or 21st century grant, they have so many reports due and then they're grant writing. So it's like, I'm not gonna get you out the house. Let me just wait because you have 10 things on your plate, and then students have testing coming up. And so just kind of coordinating times also I think would be very helpful on the best days and times, like we're doing 6:30 to 8, because if you're coming here from Southeast and you get off at 5, you know, traffic, you're probably not going to get here until 6. So just thinking about that when we're also scheduling and making meetings.
thinking about how popular the workshops are that you talked about earlier. And that's a group of people who really care enough about out of school time to go and get more training and, you know, different aspects of it. And I think that might be an audience. I don't know how much outreach has already been done to with those participants.
We have. So Heather has spoken at the conference, and we got one application for that. And then Kevin and all of, I know for the White Girt, it was said at those trainings as well. So.
Yeah.
You're doing infinitely better than I am.
Well, you should have seen my presentation.
I did community engagement stuff for like 9 years, and I found that people often don't want to commit to attending every meeting. But what they do want to do is know what the topics are for the meeting. And if the topic, it's like the kids who say, I want to come once or twice a week, right? They want to come to certain meetings that really spark their interest. And people who care about this might care one time about what's going on in the quality committee and the next time in the coordination and collaboration committee. And it feels a little constraining the way we're working with the community on this, but that's just my perception, not having really been into this much. I think it's going to be important for the committees to maybe try to establish some regular participants if we can, but to find other avenues for broader public engagement that don't require the level of commitment that we're looking for.
Yeah, I was going to make that same point, is that it will be awesome to get some members of the committees, but also it's kind of like our job in a way to go out and gather the information from people, go to them rather than expect them to come to us, right? And I was thinking about that, especially in the context of some meetings we've had, the council member and I, over the last year with a group of young folks. And one of the most interesting points they said to us at one point was like, we don't want to help make the solutions with you. You are good at that. It's your job. Come up with a solution. Come back and tell us what you think it is, and we'll give you feedback. And so that's also perfect for a Taco Tuesday kind of thing, right? It's like, hey, this is what we've been talking about. This is what we came up with for the definition of quality. What do you think about that? Or this is what we're thinking about for funding or whatever. And we can do that with a lot of our different networks. They don't have to come to a meeting. They don't have to be regular members. And then those of us are little people, just a few of us in each committee that are here, and we'll do it, and we'll do some of that work. But I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of those interactions that were already happening.
I think that's spot on. I get anxiety when I think about getting people excited about needs assessments, surveys. Nobody's gonna sign up to come to consistent meetings on that, but if I hosted a living room chat at somebody's house who's an education advocate, and they invited 12 people to give us feedback, that's valuable.
And you have something concrete instead of just this kind of amorphous idea of needs assessment. Okay, we got this great new information here. Here's what we're thinking about for next step. What do you think about that? We're trying to figure out here's my big thing with needs assessment. How do we figure out how many of those slots right now are going to the kids that need it the most versus the kids that have a lot of other options? Yeah. That's there's my 2 cents for needs assessment committee. Right? So everybody has thoughts like that when you can drill it down to something really concrete.
I love that point and completely echo both of you, and would add, I think that's also really in keeping with the commitment we all made about continuously infusing in direct and non-direct ways parent and youth input at every stage of the process. It doesn't all have to be formal, so I'm really glad you guys called that out.
Any other comments or questions? So I guess I would just ask all the committee chairs to take these ideas and try experimenting with a few things, and keep us posted on what's happening, what's working for you. Feel free. We can email each other, right? Without it having to be public.
You just have to be careful that you're not making decisions again over email and making recommendations, because everything needs to be done publicly.
Okay.
But as a committee, yes, as long as some communication's fine, as long as you're not making decisions decisions that should be public.
But Commissioner Crump could share the Taco Tuesday flyer with everybody, and she could also update us on how her first Taco Tuesday went, and what, made it successful and that sort of thing. Okay, anything else? All right, we have done a motion to adjourn. Yes. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second?
Second.
Thank you. And, thank you all.